Hello, my sweet peas and sugar dumplings, and welcome to another story time with Shining Nathan. And I'm your gay auntie, here to give you some comfy time where you can just relax and forget about the day, or just enjoy a moment while you do your chores at home. Now, today we're doing a touch of fantasy by an author I've not yet read, and I'm very excited to give you this little piece of fantasy, which was published in 1911. Now, it is by Lord Dunsany, or Dunsany, and it's called Miss Cubbidge and the Dragon of Romance. That's exciting. I love these types of fantasies. Now, I needed to give you some historical context. 1911, things were much more strictured on what you could not do, how you could say, all the internecine politics, and judging what you'll see in the story, this woman is from an upper class of society in England during 1911. I believe this would be the Edwardian period because Queen Victoria no longer is the monarch. If I'm correct, feel free to correct me. Now, before we begin, thank you very much for joining me. If you found me organically, come on, sit down for a spell. And if you followed me here from TikTok, I'm eternally grateful you did. I love being able to give you these moments of peace and calm. Now, here's where you pause to go get some snacks, something to drink, and get all colored up. Or set me down while you do your chores, run some errands, or listen to me on your car radio. Now, let's get into this delightful literary fantasy of Miss Cubbidge and the Dragon of Romance. This tale is told in the balconies of Belgrave Square and among the towers of Point Street. Men sing it at evening in the Brompton Road. Little upon her 18th birthday, thought Miss Cubbidge, of number 12A, Prince of Wales Square, that before another year had gone, it was way she would lose the sight of that unshapely oblong that was so long her home. And had you told her further that within that year all trace of that so-called square, and of the day when her father was elected by a thumping majority to share in the guidance of the destinies of the empire, should utterly fade from her memory, she would merely have said in the affected voices of hers, "Go, how dare!" There was nothing about it in the daily press. The policy of her father's party had no provision for it. There was no hint of it in conversation at evening parties to which Miss Cubbidge went. There was nothing to warn her at all that a loathsome dragon with golden scales that rattled as he went should have come up clean out of the prime of romance and gone by night, so far as we know, from Hammersmith and come to Ardle Mansions, and then had turned to his left, which of course brought him to Miss Cubbidge's father's home. There sat Miss Cubbidge at evening on her balcony quite alone, waiting for her father to be made a baronet. She was wearing long walking boots and a hat and low-necked evening dress, for a painter was but just now painting her portrait, and neither she nor the painter saw anything odd in the strange combination. She did not notice the roar of the dragon's golden scales, nor distinguish above the manifold lights of London the small red glare of his eyes. He suddenly lifted his head, a blaze of gold, over the balcony. He did not appear a yellow dragon then, for his glistening scales reflected the beauty that London puts upon her only at evening and night. Well, she screamed, but to no knight, nor knew what knight to call on, nor guessed where were the dragon's overthrowers of far romantic days, nor what mightier game they chased or what wars they waged. Perchance then they were busy even then arming for Armageddon. Out of the balcony of her father's house in Prince of Wales Square, the painted dark green balcony that grew blacker every year, the dragon lifted Miss Cubbidge and spread his rattling wings, and London fell away like an old fashion, and then England fell away, and the smoke of its factories and the round material world that goes humming round the sun vexed and pursued by time until there appeared the eternal and ancient lands of romance, lying low by mystic seas. You had not pictured Miss Cubbidge stroking the golden head of one of the dragons of song with one hand idly, while the other she sometimes played with pearls brought up from lonely places of the sea. They filled huge holous shells with pearls and laid them there beside her. They brought her emeralds, which she set flash among the tresses of her long black hair. They brought her threaded sapphires for a cloak. All this the princes of fable did, and the elves and the gnomes of myth. And partly she still lived, and partly she was one with long ago. And with those sacred tales the nurses tell, when all their children are good, and evening has come, and the fire and burning well, and the soft pet of snowflakes on the pane is like the furtive tread of fearful things in old enchanted woods. If at first she missed those dainty novelties among which she was reared, the old sufficient songs of the mythical sea singing of fairy lore at first soothed and at last consoled her. Even she forgot those advertisements of pills that were so dear to England. Even she forgot political cant and the things that one discusses and things that one does not, and had perforce to content herself with seeing sailing by huge gold-laden galleons with treasures from Madrid, and the merest skull and crossbones of the pirateers, and the tiny Nautilus setting out to sea, and ships of heroes trafficking in romance, of princes seeking for enchanted isles. It was not by chains that the dragon kept her there, but by one of the spells of old, to one to whom the facilities of daily prayers had for so long been accorded spells would have palled. You would have said, and galleons after time, and all things out of date after time. But whether the centuries passed her, or whether the years, or whether no time at all, she did not know. If anything indicated the passing of time, it was the rhythm of elfin horns blowing upon the heights. If the centuries went by her, the spell that bound her gave her also perennial youth, and kept alight for her the lantern by her side, as saved from decay the marble palace facing the mystic sea where she resided. And no when time went by her there at all, seeing her moment on this marvelous coast was turned as it were to crystal reflecting 1,000 scenes. If it was all a dream, if it was a dream that knew no morning and no fading away, the tide roamed on, and whispered of mastery and of myth, while near the captive lady, asleep in her marble tank, asleep in his marble tank, the golden dragon dreamed. And a little way out from the coast, all that the dragon dreamed showed faintly in the mist that lay over the sea. He never dreamed of any rescue in night. So long as he dreamed, it was twilight. But when he came up nimbly out of his tank, night fell, and starlight glistened on the dripping golden scales that he wore. There he and his captive either defeated time or never encountered him at all. While in the world we know, rage recoils or battles yet to be, I know not what part of the shore romance he bore her. Perhaps she became one of those princesses whom fables love to tell. But let it suffice that there she lived by the sea, and kings ruled, and demons ruled, and kings came again, and many cities returned to their native dust, and still she abided there. And still her marble palace passes not away, nor the power that there was in the dragon's spell. And only once did there ever come to her a message from the world that of old she knew. It came in a pearly ship across the mystical sea. It was from an old school friend that she had at Putney. Merely a note, no more. In a little neat round hand it said, "It is not proper for you to be there alone. Oh, that was a fantastic tale. Miss Cubbidge and the Dragon of Romance by Lord Dunsany, published 1911. That was a very delightful fairy tale. I hope you enjoyed it. And I think it speaks volumes, the little delightful funny part at the end. Because see, back in Once Upon a Time in 1911, women were unwed women, hence her name Miss, not Mrs., were not allowed to be unchaperoned amongst people. And it's a very interesting view to the days long past. I hope you enjoyed this tale, and I hope I get to tell many of them to you. Then tell me what you thought of this and where you listened to this from in the comments. And as always, I want to give a special thank you to my patrons on Patreon who make all this content possible. Thank you for bearing with me through the time I could not create. I'm glad to have my spark back, and I'm blessed to have you. And if you enjoyed my content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. For as low as $3 a month, you get early release and access to these posts. As always, there's much more from me to come, especially other videos of me showing you around Europe as I can afford it. I love you. Take care of yourself. And you're always worthy of being a child again and being read to. Until next time. Mucho amor, mi amor.